Okay, so not your typical farm video, but I figure if I'm having this problem, I know it's happened to others too, so this might be worthwhile. I don't normally do how-tos, but this seemed like it might be useful to somebody. So, short story is hot tub, right? And so what we've got going on is that a couple weeks ago, the hot tub started kicking the 240 circuit. It would trip the circuit. Something's clearly drawing too much, so the circuit trips. That's what it's supposed to do. And so we're trying to figure out what it is, and I did some troubleshooting to try to determine it. There's only a few things it could be. It could be your pump or pumps if you have more than one. So I got a pump over here, which is my back pumps. Got my front pumps here. We have an ozonator here, which is basically pumping ozone into the water. It could be that, or it could be the heating element, which is basically between here and here, the entire heating unit. And so on the circuit board, when you take the cover off, you'll see there's connections for each one of these things. So I'll show you in another edit how I actually determined what was what. But after going through and doing a bunch of different steps, we determined that it was the heating element that was firing or tripping it. And it was sometimes it happened right away, sometimes it happened after a few minutes, but you couldn't keep the hot tub on for any period of time without tripping the circuit. So I do a little price checking, and it turns out that having, it's not on warranty, obviously, so having a person come out to replace the heating element, about $400 to $500. They never really give you an exact quote, which seemed, okay, it is what it is. I do a little research in parts, and I find that I can get the entire heating unit for about $160. You can actually get the internal element for the heating unit for as little as $40, but replacing the internal element in the heating unit is kind of a pain in the backside. So I just went ahead and ordered a whole new unit. And so what I'm going to do today, while holding the camera, so this is a little bit tricky, what I'm going to do today is just record the few steps of taking apart, showing you how I tested everything, and to determine it was bad, and then what you got to do to take this off. Probably make some mistakes along the way, but that's to my detriment, to your benefit. So if this helps you, then great, keep watching. If not, then there are no pretty cows or fat little animals in this video. All right. Okay. To determine what was wrong, take the cover off the control unit. Usually just a couple of screws there at the top, and I'm holding the camera, so can't really show you everything I do as I do it. And you'll see here that I've already got one thing disconnected. That's the heating element. If I backtrack on my motor wires, you can find that I've got basically 3 connections on the motherboard here. Let's see if I can show them to you. There's one right here, and one right there. So, and this is the heating unit. So, which you can see the wires that lead right to it. It's pretty easy to see. So, interestingly enough, you probably don't know this, but you can turn your hot, you can disconnect one of these things, give power to the hot tub. Technically, I suppose you could leave power on, but I never like making connections, either putting them in or taking them out while it's got power, just because I don't want to get any type of short circuit. So turn the power off, disconnect one of the connections, turn it back on, see if it trips the meter, and repeat the process over and over again until you narrow it down. And ultimately, we narrowed it down to, at first we thought it was the ozonator thing here, but then ultimately figured out it was just because the heater wasn't coming on right away. And as soon as the heater came on, which I could force happening by turning up the temperature, it instantly cut. So to test the theory, we then just disconnect the heater, which again, you can do, and then run the hot tub. And I could run the hot tub for 15, 20, 30 minutes, never gonna trip the circuit. The instant I put the heater back on, she trips. Okay, so heating element. It's really not that complicated. There are 2 power elements right here. They're a little tricky to get on and off. And when I do it, I'll try to show that to you. 2 connections right here. You can see left one right there, and then the right one will snake up and come back around, and they're right inside there. And then 2 screws on either end, and these are just basically come off. It's nice, these are not welded to the pipes. They basically just unscrew. So just turn those off, cut off the water, and then unscrew these. You normally need like they're really on tight. So normally you want to do it with, like an oil filter wrench. I've got one of those rubber lid turners. I think I'm going to be able to do it with that. I actually tried it by hand, and I could actually move it by hand. The problem is you want it on super tight so that you don't get any leaks when you're done. But that's it. Pop the wires, take the nuts off, unscrew these. Hopefully your water's off, otherwise you have to drain it. Take it out. Put the new one in. Screw the what? The 1, 2, 3, 4, and push these 2 tabs in. You got a new heater. That's all there is to it. I mean, honestly, it's like a 15-minute repair if I wasn't sitting here talking about it. So, as with anything else, if you're not comfortable doing this, don't do it. I'm not saying this is what you do. I'm just showing you what I did. I do not recommend that you play with electricity if you are not comfortable with it. I'm not thoroughly comfortable with electricity either, which is why I have both of my switches off. I have the switch off on the wall out here, so that's already turned off, and I have it right at the main box too, so there is no power going to this whatsoever. And that'll be the end of it. Connect these two, connect the wires, screw those back on, plug the heater back in, and turn it on. Let's see what happens. Okay, something else I learned too. This is my new unit. When the control power goes on, right, when you put it on like this, there is, I'm trying to look through the camera and do this so it's a little weird, there's a lock nut that goes on top of it. You can see it right here. Okay, now that lock nut, when it spins, it goes on, it's pretty easy to do. When it comes off, it may be corroded. There is a very small, in my particular case, it's a, what is it? It is a 1/4 inch. There's a quarter inch, there it is, nut on the bottom of this. If you don't get your wrench on that nut, like again, I'm doing this through the camera, while you're spinning it, it's not this unit that's likely to spin and break, it's this one. So what happens is, if you don't get that lower 1/4 inch on it to lock this in place, like so, and then spin the lock nut on top of it, then this entire terminal will break off from the mount right here, and then you've got pretty much a useless element. So it appears that this is the fragile one, not the lower one. Now, that's my new unit. Old unit. This is what it looks like when a terminal breaks off. And you can see it right there. So it basically just spun. You can see it's pretty small. It basically just spun as I was trying to take it off. See how corroded it is. And so this one right here actually got a bend to it, and that was even going to be holding it. So they're quite fragile. So get that on like so below it, then you can take the lock nut off the top. You can see there's a little seal around it there. So live and learn. That's why we do it on the old unit first. All right, quick note. Once you loosen these up, okay, the pipe will completely disconnect. As you can see, there is a gasket there, so you want to be careful of the gasket, although it looks to be fairly sturdy, okay? The retaining bolts should already be loosened, the retaining nuts right here, and there's one down below right there. All my wires are disconnected. My power's down, is disconnected. I should be able to, it's going to be hard to do this with one hand, I should be able to just wiggle this right out. Let's see if I can get it. There it comes. And there it is. Okay, unit out. Now all I have to do is put the new unit in, place the power terminals, put the heat sensor terminals back onto the board, and then screw it back in. I'll probably clean those gaskets off as long as I'm here. Just wipe them down, make sure there's nothing going to stop it from leaking. And then tighten the bolts down, and we'll see if that's it. All right. Okay, it's all on there. Ends are tightened as pretty much as I think I can get them or need to. I'll know the hot tub's filling now. So these two ends are tightened up. Our heat sensors are connected to the board. So that's good to go. Lock nuts are all good, locked on. Power cables are screwed onto it. I still have power off to it. That's why I'm touching things. As I mentioned before, don't make the same mistake I did taking the other one off. Underneath those power cables is another nut. It's a 1/4 inch nut. You got to have an open wrench on that, so when you tighten up the lock nuts above it, you don't twist those terminals off that ceramic mount, and they do twist pretty easy. So, I mean, if there's anything tricky in this, I suppose that's it. Power cable's plugged back onto the board, and that's pretty much it. I just got to open up the slice, make sure I have water coming down into my heater, because that would be bad. So, slice is open, tub is filling. Get back out normal view. The tub is filling, and I think that's it. I honestly, as I said in the other video, I honestly don't think I should have had to drain the tub. But without having a slice over here, I see no other way of cutting the water back off from those vents into the heater. Unless, you know, I missed something or I had to take another panel off, which I just didn't want to do. So, needed to drain the water and replace it anyway. So, that's it. We're going to let it fill. And through the magic of editing, that'll only be a couple seconds for you. And once it's done, I'll fire it up and see if we're good to go. Fingers crossed. That's a good sign. So, we don't have any leaks or drips coming from we screwed our pipes back together, so that's good. That's the biggest, really, concern. Everything's live. I'm not touching anything now because obviously she's running with power. The heater's plugged back in. My heat sensors are plugged back in. I have both pumps running and the ozonators hooked up. And I am not tripping my circuit, so I'd say that the testing and determining that it was the heater turned out to be pretty much true. Make sure you open your slice so you have water, and it is not mysterious at all. Like I said in a couple of the other parts of the video, if they make it, the only tricky thing, honestly, is these are not super tight. Alright, so you gotta get those off. And you gotta be careful when putting these on. You don't back off so focus works. You wanna make sure you get that 1/4" wrench underneath on the lower nut so that the upper nut doesn't spin the terminal into the element. That's it. If I didn't have to drain my hot tub and then refill it, this whole thing, and wasn't talking in the camera, this whole thing could have been about 15 minutes. And, heaters go. You can go ahead and let someone charge you $400 or $500 for it, but I guarantee you, they won't be there an hour. The only way they can have to be there that long is if they have to drain the tub. And chances are you probably don't, because you probably have 2 slices the way you're supposed to. So, it's running. It continues to run. Life is good. There you go. On to farm chores.